Hey guys, so today I'm doing my February wrap up, or it's almost April. I'm doing my March wrap up, and then I'm going to discuss my April TBR, but it's going to be interesting. This video probably is going to be a bit shorter than they usually are, but we'll get into why in a moment. Let's just start by going through what I've read thus far in March. Obviously, I mean, you're seeing this on Monday. I'm filming it just a few days earlier, so I still have like a week left of the month, and I have a couple of books I'm almost done with, but I did want to get this out on this date was my schedule. So the other books will be involved in next month's discussion, but I ended up having a pretty good reading month. Like, all of my reads were 4 or 5 stars. I only actually have 4 that I've completed as of this moment, so that's all I'll really be discussing, but suffice it to say they were all great, and the ones I'm about to finish have also been great. So this year has just been a great reading year for me, and I feel like there's a few other channels I watch who have also been having a really great reading year, so I'm so glad 2023 is picking up for everybody, including myself. But getting into the books, the first book I want to discuss is Daughters of Sparta by Claire Heywood. This is a retelling of the story of both Helen of Troy and her sister Clytemnestra, so we're going back and forth between their perspectives, and something about me is I really find Clytemnestra's story fascinating, and I really have disliked Helen of Troy's story in the past. So going into this, I really wasn't sure how I'd feel about it, because it would depend on how much I loved versus hated the different main characters given those feelings. So I went into this, really just not knowing what to think, but really excited to give it a try, and it ended up being a great delight. Originally, I did give it 5 stars. I did lower that to 4 stars after a little bit of thought, though it did still receive 4.25 stars from me on Storygraph. I did include this in a vlog that should be going up next week, so I won't go too deep into my thoughts, but suffice it to say, it inspired a little bit more sympathy from me for Helen and her story. I liked the way it ended, and Clytemnestra, it just took a slightly different look at her that I really appreciated as well. I was worried this book was going to go down that classic cliche feminist path of like, all the men are bad and all the women are suffering and it's because of the men, and it kind of started off that way, but it really had a little bit more of a nuanced ending, and I appreciated that a lot. Then I read Cecily by Annie Garthwaite and really loved this as well. This was another, I just finished it last night, so I'm still processing exactly where I'd put it. I think I originally put it at 4 stars on Goodreads and then changed it to 5 stars. It could change back, I don't know. On Storygraph, though, I did give it 4.5, so right in the middle of those 2 scores. This is a story following Cecily Neville, the mother of Edward IV and Richard III, and the timeline starts with the execution of Joan of Arc, and then we continue up through, I don't want to spoil it if you don't want me to spoil it. I mean, it's all history, so you may not care, but in case there's someone who does, basically for those who know the history, it goes up through York's first solid triumph as far as its relationship with the throne goes, and it does go through some losses that Cecily suffers around that point as well. So if that very vague description helps you know what point it ends at, then there you go. This provided such a good opportunity to get to know Cecily Neville on a deeper level, because she really is a figure who's been very marginalized in studies of the Wars of the Roses, so I loved getting to know her better. I also really loved the portrayal of Richard, Duke of York in this so much. The portrayal of Cecily Neville basically fell into what I expected, which wasn't bad. Like, the writing was great and it really brought it to life, and I loved what the author did, but it was a little bit more expected. But Richard, Duke of York, most of the time when I've read books about him, granted I haven't read that many, but there's a lot more of a feeling of him being manipulative all the way through and just working to rebel the whole time under the guise of caring about the king. But this really took a stance that I just respected a lot more, of just like, he really does want to find peace in this kingdom, and he does everything he can to try to make it work, given what he's given, but eventually he just has to, for the sake of himself and his family, kind of become more of a traitor. And it was just a really interesting journey to watch him go on. Honestly, this one and Daughters of Sparta were very close as far as my ranking goes. I think I ultimately went with this because, first of all, the writing style in this I liked better, and I just have a lot more affection for the Wars of the Roses than I do for those Greek myths that were involved in Daughters of Sparta. So this one just barely made it over just because of those two things. But anyway, really enjoyed it. If you like Wars of the Roses, this is a great one to pick up. Then a 5-star read, of course, I read Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. I did do a full spoilery vlog on this book, so I'm not going to discuss it too much here, but we'll just say I loved it. There were some things I had issue with Fitz's decisions, which I don't think is unusual for readers of this series. Like, I think most people get frustrated with Fitz sometimes, and there were a couple other characters that were frustrating to me, but man, there's one character in this series who is such a fictional crush, and I just love him, and it was just wonderful to see him again. So anyway, so excited to continue with the series whenever I am able to. And my number one book this month that I've completed is Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. Love, love, love this. It was just so sweet. I listened to it on audiobook, and yeah, it was just such a comforting story. I have seen the films from the 90s, I believe, and really love those, and this really, like, the adaptation really follows this very closely. So it was really fun to just hear these stories being told in this format as opposed to seeing them on screen, and yeah, it was very comforting. I know why a lot of people have this as one of their favorite books of all time. Is it one of mine? I don't think so. I don't think I would put it on that level, but I think it's probably one of my favorite comfort novels of all time. So yes, this was a great win for me. So that's what I've completed this month. Let's talk about a couple things I'm currently reading, 2 of which I probably most likely will finish by the end of the month, and then one that I haven't technically started, but I know it's the next book I'm going to read, and I'll probably start it today. So first of all, I have How to Be a Victorian by Ruth Goodman. I've been reading this throughout the month, so I'm going to finish it on the last day of the month. This I'm really loving. There's been so many fascinating conversations in this and information, and it's just been incredible. It's a nonfiction. I guess I should explain what it is. It's a nonfiction following the daily life of people in the Victorian era. So it starts with like getting out of bed and some of the culture surrounding that, and then it goes into getting dressed and eating lunch and all of that jazz, and it's really, yeah, it's been fascinating. There's definitely been a few parts I haven't been as interested in. There's definitely been a few parts I haven't been as interested in, but overall I've really, really enjoyed it. And then I'm listening to the audiobook of Romantic Outlaws still by Charlotte Gordon. Yes, I'm still working on this. I was working on it at the very beginning of this month as well, but I've been a little slumpy this month. I don't want to say slumpy because that makes it sound like I just didn't want to read it. I just wanted to slow down a lot and give myself time for other things. So yeah, this has been slow going, but I really hope to finish it by the end of this next week. And I'm enjoying this a lot as well. It's been really fascinating just learning about these 2 women's lives. Again, I should explain what this is about. It is a biography of both Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley. I guess it does say on the cover if you were reading that, but yes, it's about them, mother and daughter, and I just, yeah, it's been really fascinating. I've liked it a lot. And like I mentioned, there is a book that I'm starting today, and we'll see how far I get by the end of the month, and that is Lady Anna by Anthony Trollope. Now, this one has been on a lot of TBRs, but I decided to finally get to it because I knew I wanted to read a classic. I was definitely craving a classic because I've been reading How to Be a Victorian, Daughters of Sparta, and Cecily over the past few weeks, and so I've just been really needing a classic. It's just that time. So, however, I could not decide if I wanted to read a 20th century classic, specifically probably My Cousin Rachel was the one I was most tempted by, or if I wanted to read a 19th century classic. And so I went to Instagram and did a little poll on my story, and the winner was 19th century. So this was the one I had running for that, and so I'm really excited. I don't know much about this. I know it follows a young woman who something happens, she's an heiress, but something happens where she discovers she may not be legitimate, bit, as far as her parents may not have been married when they had her. And so it changes the dynamic of her social circle and her life, basically. And so it has a lot of commentary on social status at the time and what impacted it, and I'm really excited to read it. It's been a long time since I've read any Trollope, and I've been dying to read something by him. Specifically, this one has been, it was on my Victober TBR this last year. I want to say it's been on one or two others since then, so yes, I think it was on my Decembers, and then it was on my Marches as well. So now is the time, finally, and I am overjoyed to be planning to read this. And that brings me into April. So April is going to be interesting because I don't really have solid plans for reading, at least not until the end of the month, at which point I will be going on a trip to New England, and I'm going to be seeing a few particular places associated with particular authors, and I wanted to do some homage to that. So I do intend to for sure bring with me The Inheritance by Louisa May Alcott, which is the story that Jo supposedly wrote in Little Women, I believe, or just in one of those stories. I think, yeah, Little Women. I don't necessarily expect a lot from this, but I just think it will be nice to read something by Louisa May Alcott while I'm visiting her home and wandering the area where she lived and places she would have gone. So that's a for sure that I'm bringing, and we'll see if I'm able to just finish it on the trip. I do intend to have it be a very leisurely trip where I'm still going to places and seeing things, but I also intend to take time to just like sit in parks and read and things like that. So this will just be perfect for that. And then I probably will end up listening to the audiobook for The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorn. Part of my trip will be in Salem, where Nathaniel Hawthorn grew up, and obviously I believe this story is set in Salem as well. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it is. It's definitely in that area. This is one that I read in high school, and I really don't remember anything about it beyond the general scope of the story. I do remember like the plot twist at the end, at least enough to like know what's happening. I can't remember the specific character that involved besides the main character, if you know what I'm saying, but I know it was an important figure in the town that was involved, and so in how the ending went. So anyway, I've really wanted to revisit this for a long time, especially now that I'm a lot more into classics, and so I think I'm going to listen to this on audiobook while I'm on my trip. And beyond that, I have zero plans. So I think what I'm going to do, and I'm actually really excited to see how this goes, on Instagram and possibly on here as well, I can't decide. Maybe it will for sure be on Instagram on my stories, but it may also appear here as well, just depending on my mood if I want to put it in both places, if I have time and energy to do that. But I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to vote on different prompts, not books. I'm going to have two different prompts that are opposing once I need a new book to read. So once I finish Lady Anna, I will do basically the same thing I did with Lady Anna, where I took a poll of 19th century or 20th century. I'll do things like that, like number generator versus color wheel. Basically, do you want me to do a random number generator for a page count, or do you want me to do a color wheel for a color that's on the cover? Or I could do like a new to me author versus a favorite author, things like that. So that's how I'm going to treat this month. It's going to be very up in the air, and I'm just gonna see what happens. Some of you may be wondering why I'm not just reading Assassin's Quest, and the reason is because with my trip coming up, I just know, first of all, I won't have the focus or necessarily the time to really enjoy that the way I want to. Like, I just need a little more time to just be like, this can take me as long or as not long as I want it to take. Whereas with my trip, I wouldn't want to bring that one with me, so I'd need to shrink it down anyway. My plan is, as of right now, to read that one in May, so I will for sure get to it soon. I just think April I'm going to wait and hold off a little bit longer. So anyway, look forward to those polls. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, definitely do. The link is in my description. Full disclosure, I'm not very good at posting regularly. I'm trying to get better, at least with my stories, so you'll see at least something from me. And maybe you prefer it when it's just like something here and there. It's not like constant like some people. So anyway, just know that going in. But I would love to have you over there. Plus, yes, I for sure will have my polls there, so if you want to participate in that, head over there. You may get some on here, like I said, but it's going to be a lot more in the air on that one. So anyway, I'm going to end this here. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below if you've read any of the books I've mentioned, your thoughts on them, as I would love to know. I hope March has been a wonderful reading month, that April will continue to be so, and I will see you next time.